Hello YouTube, it's Dragon Turtle with the Ray of Shadow Legends video. We're going to discuss Gretel, the Halloween fusion, and her partner, Hansel. Starting with Gretel, she's a legendary attack-based force champion from the Sacred Order. Her A1 is a single target attack with decreased defense. With Hansel, it becomes an AoE with the possibility of an extra hit when enemies have buffs. This is great for blender comps when you have her paired with Hansel, although the decreased defense makes it a sheet magnet and blender comps aren't the strongest in this meta due to Stone Skin. Her A2 is a single target 4-time hitter that ignores an increasing amount of defense per hit. If an enemy is killed by the attack, it resets its own cooldown and fills Gretel's turn meter by 50%. A 4-time hitter is great against UDK, Rotos, and other enemies that require several hits. It reminds me of an upgraded form of Horden, although that champ gets an extra turn. Gretel's A3 is an AoE that decreases turn meter by 25% and boosts her own by 20% for each living enemy. With Hansel, it becomes 50% turn meter decrease and cannot be resisted. Cannot be resisted are great words to hear, and all the turn meter effects in her kit mean she's going to quickly cycle through and back to her nukes. Her passive seems to be geared for fighting mythicals. Her turn meter is filled by 50% whenever an enemy gets an extra turn. This also applies to Hansel if he's on the same team. In addition, the active effect causes Gretel's A3 to proc whenever Hansel is killed by an enemy. Filled by 50% means she'll likely go next after the mythical takes its second turn. The problem is if my mythical Alaz takes his turn first, I'm 95% sure I'm gonna win. Doesn't matter who goes next. Her aura is a big boost in attack in all battles. Amazing. Final verdict, C tier. She's useful for mid-game blender comps, but being a legendary, she's too expensive for the early game and doesn't have the kit for the late game. She also doesn't have the unique skills needed for challenging PvE content either. My plan, I'm going for her on my pay-to-win account as a collector's item and skipping her on my free-to-play. Time for Hansel. He's a legendary attack-based magic champion from the Sacred Order. All in all, I think he suffers from the same weaknesses as Gretel. His A1 is essentially the same as Gretel's, except it applies weaken instead of decreased defense, and the extra hit is procced by debuffs instead of buffs. Sheet magnet, weak against Stone Skin, otherwise strong. His A2 is a double hitter that ignores shield and unkillable. It grants an extra turn if it kills an enemy. Where is this useful? I don't face too many opponents using shield and unkillable, so I guess this makes him a niche counter. I assume it's going to hit hard because each book adds 10% damage and there's nothing too fancy on this skill. His A3 is an AoE that ignores 15% defense. It also increases the cooldown of one random skill on each enemy by 2 turns. If Gretel is on the team, it will ignore 30% defense and increase the cooldown on all the enemy's skills. On top of that, it cannot be resisted. This skill is incredible. It's what makes Warlord so powerful, but there is a downside. You either have to build him hybrid or have Gretel on the same team. Hybrid nukers, unless they're mythical and ignore res, are tough to build for arena. You have to trade damage for accuracy. On the other hand, if Gretel is on the team, you have 2 attack-based champions to keep alive. That's a tall order in the higher stages of arena. His passive allows him to reflect all fear and true fear debuffs. If Gretel is on the same team, she reflects them too. Similarly to Gretel's active effect, if she is killed by an enemy, the event procs Hansel's A3. His aura is limited because it is arena only. If it were all battles like Gretel's, it would be more useful. Final verdict, B tier. I assume he'll hit very hard, and the increased cooldown on the A3 is useful for wave content and against Stone Skin opponents. Weaken on the A1 is also more useful than Gretel's A1, because you're probably running a dedicated decreased defense champion already. That being said, a single target A1 weaken isn't anything special. My plan, I'd like to pull him on either account. I probably wouldn't do any events for him unless it seemed reasonable on my pay-to-win account. Final verdict on both champions together, B tier. They're good champions to add to the game, but they're expensive for early game players and don't add enough utility to boost your account. They're strong for mid and late game arena blender teams, but once you reach Sheep and Stone Skin, adding to the fact they're attack based, you face quite an uphill battle to make them viable. I'm already seeing this with people using Thor in Arena. I have yet to lose to a Thor team. He's just too fragile in today's meta. When it comes to champion analysis, always take it with a grain of salt. It's easy to read a kit and make assumptions, but I've been surprised many times by champions that read poorly or excellently and performed the opposite. So use your wisdom, make your best decision. One last thing, like, subscribe, and leave a comment letting me know if you're gonna go for these champs or you're gonna skip them, or let me know what your analysis is down below. All right, guys, with that, I'm out of here. I'm gonna keep working to make better videos. See you soon.